Welcome to week 6 of Groves. We're kind of coming to the back half, the final stretch of this series in Ecclesiastes as we kind of look at this, trying to look at the future and kind of base our present based on what we know to be true in the future with Solomon's wisdom. And I hope you've been gaining some wisdom that you can apply to your personal lives as you discuss this with your Groves and kind of unpack and kind of go a little bit deeper into some of the text. And today we're going to be looking at just a couple of passages in Ecclesiastes, and they kind of have to do with the word content. And I don't know what you think of when you think of the word content. I don't know if you think of being happiness or joy or peace or just kind of what thoughts you think of when you think of somebody who's content, or even if you would consider yourself content. But it's kind of an important thing to think about. Really, because I think a lot of us in our culture today, we kind of think our contentedness, our happiness, our joy, our peace, whatever, it comes from outward circumstances. And if we can just kind of have all those, then we can have outward peace, then we can have inward peace. And the Bible's kind of presenting something completely different than that. It's kind of saying more, no, your inner peace comes from somewhere, and that's what allows you to have peace despite whatever's going on in the world around you and the circumstances. And so there's actually this passage, we're going to skip out of Ecclesiastes for a moment, in Philippians. And to be honest with you, it's probably the most misused, misquoted New Testament passage that there might be. And you probably know, if I say Philippians 4:13, you're probably going to already know what it says, because athletes and others kind of use this, saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I can climb that mountain, I can swim across this, I can overcome this obstacle and whatever. When, to be honest with you, it's completely out of context. That's not really at all what this passage is saying. And so if you want to know what it's talking about, really what it's talking about is being content. Being content no matter what the circumstances are in your life is what's the secret of being content no matter what the outward circumstances are. And so I want to read you this passage and kind of unpack a little bit of it, because I think it's going to apply to what we're going to be reading in Solomon's wisdom in Ecclesiastes. And so this is what it says in Philippians 4:10. It says, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned, it says, I've learned this. I've learned to be content, whatever the circumstances, which is kind of an interesting phrase. He's saying, hey, I've learned, maybe I didn't know this before, but over time I began to learn this, and I've been applying wisdom or perspective, and now I'm learning how to be content, whatever the circumstances, because that might not have always been the case. And he says this in verse 12, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. And I think that's kind of an interesting phrase there. He says, I've learned the secret. He's like, there's kind of a mystery. There's kind of this unknown thing that most people just completely miss, and I've got it. I figured out the key to being content no matter what the circumstances are. Whether I've been well-fed or hungry, whether I've been rich or poor, I've been plenty or in want. It's like there is a way to be content no matter which of those things has happened to you outwardly. And he's saying, I figured it out. And here's what he says in verse 13. This is the one you know. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And really, if you kind of look straight at the Greek and you just translate word for word in the Greek, it really kind of says more like this. In all things, I have the strength. I have the power. I have the vigor. I have the health in the one who empowers me, or the one who is strengthening me. And so it's the idea of where does your peace come from? Where did your contentedness come from? Is like really where it comes from a right relationship with God. And that's what allows you the perspective to be able to see all these circumstances around you as not being able to control or dictate whether you are content or not, but you can have contentedness in him that will kind of permeate all these other areas of your life. And so as we kind of look at Ecclesiastes in your Grove today, we're going to be looking at kind of like one lengthy passage and then one just single verse. And I really just want you to question yourself and question society and question what you've been taught. And where does contentedness come from? Is it something that comes outward, or is it something that comes inward? What's the source of that? And do you know the secret of being content like Paul says he has, where he knows how to be content no matter what his circumstances, because he has that in something that is not based on the things around him. And I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I hope you're going to be able to unpack that, because I think it's really a key for us in our world of figuring out where do we have that content, where do we have that peace, where do we have that rest, no matter what's going on, that, hey, we've figured out the mystery. We figured out the secret of how to be content. And I think if you can figure that out, I think it's going to free you to live a life much different than what the world is saying. So hopefully that gives you some food for thought as you kick off this week's Grove. And hopefully you'll have a great discussion as you unpack these verses and dig a little bit deeper. So we'll see you next week.